Hello and welcome back to the Inverted Castle, a Metroidvania enthusiast podcast. I'm a special little boy, you gotta be nice to me, Eric Fox, and joining me as always is a man who did not get the memo, he is so mean like all the time, it's Tom Blake.
Yo, what the hell, you suck.
Fine. Okay, let's start this again and I'll read the intro you wrote. Sup, dinguses? It's the inverted whatever, a thing about stuff. It's me, the guy who sucks, plus I got depression, Eric Fox, and gracing us with his presence. Surely not a man, but a Greek god, appearing as though hewn from the finest marbles of Athens. Arms like tree trunks, huge meat, great pecs, it's Tom Blake.
This seems entirely accurate. You should really try being more like me.
Yeah. Honestly, we could all aspire to such great heights as you've achieved. Much like the great heights that we fly through in Owlboy.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Damn, he's good. Released in 2016 by D-Pad Studios. It's an action-adventure game, pixel art, 2D, explore 'em up. You are an owl boy, so most of the platforming in heavy quotes is actually flying around at will. This game was notable for having an incredibly long development cycle, having restarted several times by the development team as they reworked what they had and eventually came out with this. So, yeah. Early impression, as someone who did not play the game at release like I did? A resounding eh.
I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get into exactly why. Was it story related? Because we can just knock that one out real quick.
Not really. I think the story was one of the better parts, I guess. I don't know. But yes, we should get into the story. You're Otis, a owl boy who is a mute.
Yep, mute and very clearly suffers from some anxiety.
Yes. You are an apprentice who is apparently not very well liked by his master. I don't know. He starts out being like, yeah, I'll be able to mold you. And then he's just like, oh, you're just kind of incompetent.
He very quickly turns to, my useless apprentice, you can't do anything, try to stay out of our way kind of thing. He sucks. Very early on, the intro series of scenes degenerates from, let's do this, to, wow, this is just abuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I know you called it out in the intro. The tone of this is like, I don't know, it's weird. There's a lot of extremely harsh characters, and then there's also a bunch of cinnamon rolls.
They're doing a thing here with bullying and abuse with certain characters, and because there's for this kind of game a lack of screen time for any of these, that's very on the nose, which I think more or less works, but it definitely, there's a bit of a whiplash in these early chapters of some characters are just like, hey, Otis is a nice young boy. You got to be nice to him. And others just like, in particular, it's always the owl characters who are kind of being jerks.
Yeah, I guess so. It is always owls. I mean, it's also owls that are usually the targets as well.
Yeah.
It's Otis and Solus are the targets for most of it.
They're too sweet, as it were. But yeah, there's a reason why it's particularly the owls who are like obviously this prideful race. The setting is a bunch of sky islands and the ruins of the once great owl civilization, and the remnants have sort of become the de facto, I don't know, police / like military leaders / village leaders type things.
Yeah, I guess so.
There are like maybe 10 characters total in the whole game, so it's, you have to extrapolate a bit here. But yeah, the game starts with Otis doing just some flying around the village. You meet the characters, you meet your best friend Getty, who is part of the town watch. He's just a fun guy to hang around with. He's nice. And during that, you encounter some sort of troublemaker They chase through some ancient owl ruins where you get the teleporter, which is just how you teleport your buddy to you and Getty.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Sky Pirates, the main antagonists of the game, raid your village and they get an owl relic. These are the MacGuffins of the game. And so the rest of the story is you kind of chasing the Sky Pirates, trying to stop them from getting more relics. There's this main city called Advent that gets destroyed. Like, you very briefly show up there. It seems like it'll be like a explorable town, but no. I'm not sure about your expectations, but that's what I had back 8 years ago when I first played it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be the hub or whatever, and then nope, it's time for a stealth mission, and then you don't get to come back from that stealth mission to it because it exploded.
You can go back to where it is, like if you go through the floating continent area again, there'll be just this big skybox area you can float around with just the remnants of like buildings and stones that used to be Advent, but there's nothing to do there.
I think you mean the Owl Temple, but okay.
I do mean the Owl Temple, sorry. Yes.
How dare you be wrong on the internet?
It's the Owl Temple or the Owl Sanctuary, floating tower, floating continent,
Yeah, I don't know. The story is fine, I guess. I don't really get what was going on with the stick bugs. That just felt kind of strange, because like half of the pirates, named pirates, end up turning on them and becoming your allies and essentially your abilities, right, over the course of the game. First, there's Alphonse, who is a robot pirate.
Yes.
And then there's Twig, who is a stick bug who cosplays as a spider.
Very much would like to be called a spider, thank you. They made their own webbing. Yeah, Twig is the troublemaker from the very beginning of the game. Both Twig and Alphonse are like allied with the pirates. Twig just wants some friends. Alphonse was just there since the pirates were created, since it turns out they are all robots created by the ancient owl civilization. But he'd rather be a thespian or a hero and doesn't really agree with the more war-horny aims of this current batch of Sky Pirates.
Yeah, also, way to mess it up, owls.
Yeah, it's all the owls. And while you're out adventuring, the other owls that are still like around, your mentor Asio is still berating you for not like just doing the simple things he's telling you to do or just sitting there and shutting up. His mentor named Strix is doing the exact same thing to him. And so you kind of see the cycle of abuse going on, which is the idea of cycles being a thing that will be revealed later. But I think it's important to show now.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. I mean, well, I think at this point we should just talk about the more interesting backstory stuff.
Yes. What the hell happened to the ancient owls? Why did they make these relics that the Sky Pirates want to use to destroy the world?
Yeah, which turns out to be the owls figured out that the world is a stable time loop. They just call it the loop, right? And so they don't love the idea that they're stuck in a loop.
It apparently just causes great upheaval in owl civilization, and the greatest minds decide to do something about it.
Yeah, so they convert all of their industry towards, hey, is there a way to figure out how to get out of this loop? They come up with the hex, which requires the relics, which is supposed to break them out of the loop. There's a dialogue that you get pretty much at the end of the game once you've gotten all the secrets. Actually, the only way to get it is to go back from the end boss, so yeah.
Yeah.
Where it turns out someone mathed it out to a 50-50 shot of whether it will work or not, and it didn't. It turned out that it blew up what was presumably a pretty normal planet, and everything became sky.
Yeah, there used to be regular continents in like a sea, and then everything blew up. Ruins of civilization, very few survivors, and everything started raising up towards, space where things can't live. So,
yeah, blew it straight into the stratosphere. I guess actually troposphere, because that's the bottom level of this world.
That is true. Yeah, the area called Tropos. And yes. Stratos, yeah.
Yeah, the pirates are just trying to collect these powerful relics and use them for destroying things because, I don't know, they don't have a deeper motivation. It's just they're programmed to be warlike.
Yeah, the main guy whose name escapes me, who is, for all intents and purposes, the main antagonist, who leads the pirates, he was just built for war by the owls, and so he's the best at it. And so that's his steez, and the rest of the automatons just kind of follow him, Alphonse being a outlier in that sense.
Yeah, I gotta say, this was my big disappointment that he's never actually a boss battle.
Yes, he features in cutscenes and is more or less a cutscene boss at like the very last thing you do after you fight the true final boss. He'll show up, but yeah, you don't actually have a mano a mano fisticuffs with War Dude.
His name is Molstrom.
Molstrom, thank you. God, that was gonna bug me.
Yeah, no deeper motivation there.
No, but like he ends up being more or less a force of nature for the actual story between you and a character we just mentioned offhand, Solus, who's another owl who's kind of, a little timid, trying to do his best. Turns out he'd been manipulating the pirates the whole time to show them where the owl relics were so that they could get them because he couldn't do it on his own. And then at the very end, he steals them and tries to use them to power a different ancient owl technology thing, the anti-hex, to kind of undo, all the continents raising into space and killing everybody.
Yep.
But it also did involve him, doing a little bit of genocides via piracy.
I mean, I guess he didn't do the genocide, but I guess he did provide the pirates with the relic while they had the chance to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, like there is a culpability there that I don't think is entirely unearned, but he's desperate and is also was the only one doing it because I guess he found these ancient texts from the old Owl Society that described what the hex was and what the anti-hex was, and well, gotta do something.
I think the implication is that he might be related to Aegolius, the person who created the hex.
There are certain similarities, you'll see holograms of ancient owls as they tell their story, and they kind of look like owls you've seen in the present day. So that's certainly a fan theory, I'm sure, but nothing explicitly made in the text. There's just the one character that's referenced, Asio, looking like Who's-Its from the past.
That's fair, actually. They do say Asio looks like, not Aegolius, someone else.
It honestly, doesn't really matter. Again, a fairly short game, but decent enough fine touches on lore and story, which tends to be very much a set piece to set piece, go here, go here, go here, and areas are unlocked just via completing things in a linear order.
Yeah. I mean, like, they do progression by ability gating, but it is, like, you gain the ability because you got to a point in the plot.
Yeah, and there's really just, like, there weren't any real places beyond the hub world where you need to go back, having gotten a new ability.
Yeah.
But that's all gameplay, which we'll get into in a second. Just before we move on from story, I do want to bring back that point about cycles. Like, the Owl Society destroyed themselves based on this idea of this loop, the time loop. The main genius there just foresaw you, Otis, both dying above Advent and appearing before him in his hologram form. And so he bet everything on you. So I guess you basically are the one who breaks the cycle. There's the cycles of abuse from the remnants of Owl Society having such weirdly high expectations of people below them, but not really understanding how to, not be prideful jerks about it.
Yeah.
And Twig, your buddy, just like does questionable things. Solus does questionable things, all in the name of just like Twig wants to have friends. Alphonse wants to live a good life. Solus wants to save the world, but they're all involved in shady things. But they all also break out of that by the end, I suppose. Solus less so, but that's because it's the climax.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I'm trying to think if you don't really ever get into anything super shady yourself other than, like, recruiting former pirates.
Not particularly. Otis is a sweet boy the whole time, which I think is fine. Because like he's like kind of the end of like the all the shit that flows down in management. He's the one at the bottom, so that's
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of nice job breaking it hero that they accuse him of, but
yes.
it's never actually like, Otis, why didn't you activate the temple that never worked?
Yeah, they blame him for them just being wrong about what was going to be there.
Otis, you successfully burned the enemy ship, but their captain wasn't on it and he used the relic.
Yeah, he just man-moded all of Advent.
Yeah, I don't know.
There is a nice scene, like, I think Alcio kind of gets off easier than he should, all told, but there is a scene where, like, he's just kind of contemplating things after everything goes to shit, and he just has this, like, he told Otis to just stay behind in the school back on Advent, and if Otis had followed that they would just all be dead. And so he's just like reckoning with all of the things he's done and said, and just
Yeah.
Otis does like forgive him, but again, like it's by nature of there not being enough time to really unpack everything. It's a nice enough scene.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I explained that well enough, but
I mean, I got it having played the game, but
that's the problem. And like honestly, I do think it's a good game. Asterisk.
Yeah. So I guess they leave this a little ambiguous at the end. Do you think the loop has actually stopped at the end once the anti-hex is cast? Because they do a weird timey-wimey thing where it's a mirror of the beginning of the game, except instead of faceless people saying very negative things to you, it's now faceless but recognizable silhouettes saying nice things to you, right?
Yeah, and then like all the land falls back into the ocean, and there's the silhouette of Osseo basically says like, yeah, this is like the childhood you should have had. This is the way things were supposed to be, I guess. So like, yeah, alternate reality you've kind of entered in a little bit. So like, I'd like to think that you've broken out of whatever cycle you used to be in, that the game takes place in. It is left ambiguous, and probably for a reason, but personally, I like the idea of the hopeful ending, but I'm not sure. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
No, I don't know. I think prior to having seen the holograms, I was leaning towards, nah, that probably just restarted the loop.
Yeah.
After seeing the holograms, maybe.
So, like, I think the idea is that the loops were continuing as long as Otis dies over Advent. And since we're playing the one time that the one seer in the Owl Sanctuary saw that Otis was actually in front of his hologram, that's the break. And so by completing the anti-hex or whatever, or maybe as part of the hex and then the reversal, we're now outside of that time loop. Or, you know, maybe you could argue that we're in a different time loop now. Who knows? But at the very least, I think the thesis of the game would suggest that by completing your adventure, the cycle is broken.
Yeah.
I think that makes the most sense to me from a narrative perspective.
Yeah. And it's quite a fatalist time loop, too. It's not just like, hey, events have happened similar ways before and are happening again. It's literally like everyone who exists has existed before in like the exact same way. Right.
Yeah, like it's going full foundation of using math to predict the future and just seeing the same waveform, like you existing again and again, dying the exact same way again and again.
Yeah, I guess it's hopeful to think that that's not how it goes going forward.
I'd like to think so, but who knows? Like, there's nothing in it that suggests by the end to go full depression arc, so yeah. I liked it.
Yeah. I guess as for gameplay...
Yes.
So I think my biggest complaints are with gameplay. It tries interesting things.
Sure.
I think its control scheme is bad.
That I might disagree.
I also have some dumb problems, which are definitely not the control scheme's problems. But my desire was all the time to fly. I wanted to fly like Kirby, so I kept pressing A multiple times. And that makes you stop flying.
Yeah, no, your default state is almost flying, so you don't actually need to do anything. Just enter fly mode, And then it's similar to a twin sticks shooter at times, where whoever or whatever you're holding changes your ability at that time.
Yeah.
And as you gain friends and carry them, you'll get the gun, big shotgun fire, which burns things, or the webbing, which can pull you across.
So I guess some complaints I have about this. I feel like treating the friends as if you are carrying an object was probably almost completely unnecessary.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, there's maybe a couple puzzles where you can summon a friend and then drop them on a switch that are not worth the mechanic. Well, it does do some dumb things, like for some reason your friends always have pickup priority over any other object, which is like the least likely thing for me to want to do. So I kept having these dumb mistake loops where I would accidentally summon a friend, or I would already be holding them.
Sure.
I would want to pick up something else, right? Say a root vegetable, which is how you heal, right? I would drop the friend. I would then go down to the root vegetable, which was overlapping the friend, because I just dropped them right above where I wanted to be. And I would hit the pickup button, and I would get the friend.
And this would repeat.
And then I would have to throw away the friend and do it again. And it's just like, I don't know, this is the wrong prioritization. Like, this is such a small thing, but it really bugs me.
Mm-hmm. Can I say, you are right that the prioritization is a little whack in that case. Obviously, you want to get the root vegetable instead of your friend because you can always just summon your friend. I will say that, for one thing, I do like thematically, even if this is not a gameplay thing, but I do like you carrying around your friends. That's just a fun idea. Like, I think that goes more towards flavor rather than mechanical. But also, if you just hit the X button, they disappear. Or you can throw them away.
I had never actually used the X button, apparently. I guess they do if you do the spin, right?
Yeah, so like you're right that like in your head you're just dropping them because you don't want to hurt your friend. You're already bought into the fiction, so you don't want to do a little spin move. But this is one of those things where there is a solution. It's not obvious. I don't think it's like there's not like a huge wall of text tutorial or anything in this game, which is good, but also leads to a situation where, oh, I didn't know I could do that.
But on the other hand, if they just disappear when you press X, why didn't they just make it so that they disappear when you try to pick up another item? Right? Like,
yeah,
it's, I don't know. It drives me nuts. So the other problem that I have with the controls, and I actually meant to remap the controls to see if I liked it better.
Okay.
The controls are wrong. Or in that,
what?
in order to aim, you have to put away access to some of your abilities. And I don't like that.
In what way?
Specifically, if you want to aim,
yep,
you can't be planning on spin dashing or slapping anything, right? Because you aim with the right stick, you spin dash or twirl, I don't know, with the bottom button B for me because I'm on a Switch, and you slap things with the like somewhat offensive move that mostly just stuns things with Y, right? So it's just like it ends up being overly bimodal to me. I don't know. And maybe that's fine, but it's just like when you're using the sticks, you have access to the triggers and the bumpers, right? Except the triggers and the bumpers are spent shooting, picking up, which we've talked about picking up, I hate, and switching guys, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, switching guys while you're aiming, useful, right? Especially because one of them has a limited charge attack, so you're only going to use him once and then switch off, right? But I don't know, I just think it could have been better, and that just sort of soured me a bit on it.
I hear you, and I feel you. This is not something that bugged me, but maybe I was more accepting of the idea of I use the dash to reposition, then I'm firing with a limited mobility, like you just have your normal fly speed without the dash. Because the dash doesn't have invulnerability frames, like I guess I was just more okay with that. And especially once you get Twig, who can like do the pull grab thing, that was just a better dash.
Fair.
I'd just be using Twig for that ability more so to reposition, but I hear you. That's an annoyance. I don't know. It was just something that personally felt fine for the degree of challenge that the game provides. Like I say twin stick shooter, but it is not a bullet hell kind of thing. You do not need that much tricky maneuvering, generally speaking.
Yeah, honestly, the game should have killed me a bunch of times and just didn't for some reason. I don't know, like, particularly the ooze boss of the floating continent. I came out of it being like, I did not learn how this boss was supposed to work. I don't understand how I ended up surviving this encounter.
Yeah, I think overall the difficulty is low for at least what seems like our skill level, but I think that's consistent overall. So I think this game is for, people who are less like capital G gamers. It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Like, that's fine, but it's also not interesting in boss fights. I feel like it was trying a little bit to do, like, kind of Zelda-ish things, but not doing it right.
Yeah, it was a bit hit and miss for me for bosses. Like, there's definitely, like, one boss that's just a bunch of monkeys who are just regular enemies, and a big monkey in the background who you never actually fight, just summons more monkeys, which is kind of, it's a horde fight, and never going to be too excited about that.
Yeah.
But occasionally, like, a bit of a miss for the limited amount of mechanical depth this game has. But then I thought that the Dirk fight, where you use Twig to basically do like your samurai like dash past each other, then attack him, worked really well. I felt good fighting him, and you can always challenge yourself to never get hit. I obviously didn't. This game lets you be a bit sloppy, and that's fine.
I don't know. I was actually very sloppy. Like, even on Dirk, I messed up the timing fairly often. I actually... Dirk was one of the few places I actually died during a boss, which was really annoying because he has cutscenes mid-boss fight.
Oh, and you can't skip those?
Not those ones, no.
Ooh.
Actually, there was a hilarious thing where it gives you the press L to skip prompt, and on at least one cutscene, it just didn't work.
Oh, no.
It was, I think the teleporter back to the floating continent just, nope, does not actually do anything.
Weird.
I don't know if that was just a bug that I was experiencing, or like it was committed to that point, or was loading in assets.
Or like there's this like ancillary dialogue that's no longer there, but you're still technically skipping or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like the middle third of this game. You go from a stealth section to a low light environment to another stealth section, and I was like, okay, when do I get to do stuff? But it turns out that's the game.
Yes.
And so, like, I don't know, it was rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to the overall design of this game, which I don't think is Metroidvania at all. To a certain extent, it is more concerned with like a linear order, very straightforward dungeons. Like, I think like nothing that even resembles like a hub and spoke design, really.
Yeah.
And then a lot of set pieces where you just never come back to that spot again. Very limited in terms of collectibles. This game doesn't have a map at all.
Yeah, which is funny too, because my first time through, I didn't find the path to the owl coin in the temple. But, like, I could clearly see it.
Yeah, it shows it to you, and then you think, maybe we'll sneak back around, but no, there's a hidden path that I also missed my first time around.
I was under the assumption that I was going to get Alphonse and the third companion, which turned out to be Twig, and come back and be able to get it. Turns out I just hadn't looked in the right corner.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about you get further abilities. All they really do is point you to the next spot. So like there's like one more or less hub world, but really it's just a sequence of getting the thing that unlocks the next path, which unlocks the next path.
Yeah.
You can go back to earlier areas unless they're a stealth or set piece.
Yeah. And there are rewards that increase your health, but you get them for finding the coins, which almost never involves using your abilities. And I mean, I didn't go for full coin completion. I don't think typically involves revisiting with an ability you didn't have.
There is one in the path back out of the snow area, the stick bugs, where you currently don't have Getty for story-related reasons. And if you go back there, there's a thing he needs to shoot, which gets you the Buccaneer coins.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of in the entire game. The coins are the only real collectible. There's the 3 medals, which unlock the extra story bits, but there's only 3, and you more or less see them on your way, as long as you're just exploring as well as you can, the Owl Temple notwithstanding. But yeah, that's kind of it. And the more coins you collect, you'll get cosmetic hats that Otis can wear. Max health upgrade. There's one upgrade for Getty, which lets him shoot farther. One upgrade for Alphonse, which lets him shoot further. And Spectral Cloak, which if you get them all, which you've already basically beaten the game at that point, your dash is now faster.
Yay.
It's not a lot, and because there's no fast travel, there's no map, there's no way to see where you might have missed coins. Like, it'll tell you how many out of each area you've collected, so it'll put a little gold star if you got them all. It also does this thing where there are technically more than listed. There are certain areas that just have secret coins that don't really count, but, you know, it makes getting up to the last unlockable easier, which is cool, but also betrays the fact that this is not really a game for completionist hardcore Metroidvania types, because that's annoying as fuck. To just have these secret coins that aren't listed anywhere, and I don't know, did I complete this area? It says I got 803 out of 800. What does that mean? Do I still need to search there or not?
It's the Donkey Kong Country problem. Why is it going above 100?
But at least there, like, you have your, there are 100 bananas, like these many coins.
Yeah.
It's still fucked up and wrong what they did. It's a crime. But coupled with the fact that all the dungeons are, if you were to go back, you're just going through the whole dungeon again. There's no, like, any way to know where to search for coins if you didn't get them all. They're all very linear.
Yeah.
And once you get to the end, you kind of have to just go back out the way you came.
Yeah. Also, did not appreciate the mini game, the cannon flying. I don't know.
The cannon mini game is kind of hard. It's weird, almost like Flappy Bird controls, except going straight down a little bit. All it is for coins, so if you don't care about them, great job.
Yeah, I never actually went back and finished it. I just got frustrated at having to, I don't know, maybe I'm just very slow in the brain now, having to like start inputting before I even saw the thing that I was trying to input for.
No, Tom, we went over this. You're flawless. Complexion's immaculate. And also you're, clearly it's the game that is wrong. No, like, I powered through it, like, I don't know, I just have more time. So I can waste it.
That's fair, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. One does not play video games in a vacuum. So certain things will appear to waste one's time more egregiously than others. But I think that the canon minigame is kind of the only minigame as well. So, you know, something that will absolutely anger completionists, but don't worry about it. That's my advice. Just get the things that unlock story, because the medallions unlock the sanctuary, which gives you more context for backstory, but that's about it. There's also a key you get from the Bongo Hut, which eventually will unlock a cutscene that's just a little short little story about the Bongo Hut guy's backstory and his brother.
Oh.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's kind of nice, but also it just kind of ends. Even after you get more, like, he's like, oh, this is what his brother did. You go back, Bongo Guy does not have additional dialogue for you. So, a little bit of a cul-de-sac, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe a bunch of this is the result of a tumultuous development.
Boy, howdy, it has to be, but we can only speculate.
It's just like, I don't know, a bunch of things seem to be just like there for being there. Like Twig's whole thing with the spider thing I feel like a more fully fleshed out game probably would have given him some motivation for that.
At least more to do in that area where you'd get more context for his home life, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Meh.
Because outside of little cul-de-sacs like that, I will say that the game's presentation overall is really good.
I mean, it's a very pretty game.
It's a very pretty game. It sounds amazing. Like all of these set pieces where the camera, as it were, zooms out and like the highly detailed pixel art is like shrunk down, but you see more of it. The music hits at certain like emotional beats. I was not impressed back when I first played it, but going through and having a better context for what this game was going to be, I was able to appreciate it more. And I think that kind of stems from if you're reinventing the game several times, I'm sure a lot of assets were able to be reused and refined and stuff like that. So, it paid off in certain ways. And yeah, I don't know how you felt about like music. I know pixel art is, a dime a dozen these days, but the amount of bespoke character designs and animations.
I don't know. It's pretty character art. It's well done. Honestly, I didn't notice the music most of the time.
I didn't either, because a lot of like the flying around moments, it's supposed to be like the sense of freedom. You're not really like paying attention to specific things. You've just got you in the sky. But I'm just thinking about the like raid on the pirate ship after the stealth section, the climactic battle as things change, different movements hit in the music. It was more in the spectacle moments that I really remember it hitting. But otherwise, it kind of fades to the background, which I think is mostly what you want.
Fair.
When you're not in like an emotional high, kind of thing. Yeah. Any last thoughts? Because I've got one.
I don't know. I think I listed a fair number of complaints about it. I don't know. It just ended up not really feeling like what I was expecting to get into.
That's the thing. So, my last point here. When I suggested this, I didn't really have a thesis that I was like aiming for. I just remember this game being profoundly disappointing to me. But it had been 8 years and I kind of just wanted to revisit it, knowing what the general shape is and seeing if I have a better time with more reasonable expectations. And I did. I actually looked up like its Steam page has its user generated or user submitted genre tags, and Metroidvania is there, but it's no longer like part of the main three. And in its own promotional material, it doesn't really mention anything that I would consider to be like for the hardcore explorer centered folks. And so like, I think a lot of the negativity that I personally experienced was from me thinking, oh, this has the look, right, of your quintessential indie Metroidvania type thing, when really it's a different spin on a linear platform story adventure.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but like, I don't know.
There certainly are gestures towards conventions that the game does itself a disservice by leveraging. Like, I think the collectibles in different areas and certain hub worlds being designed as they are leads you to assume certain things that never end up paying off. And it becomes very inconvenient to play in a style that it kind of gestures towards. Like, if you want to get everything, here's a bunch of collectibles. It becomes far too laborious to ever get them, and the rewards don't match.
Yeah, I guess so. But
having played it, knowing what to expect, and to just kind of shotgun through, I did not get all the Buccanary coins this time around. I had a much better time. But at the same time, it is not what I would consider a Metroidvania, which is, of course, what populates, I would say, almost all of our stack rank.
Yeah. I guess interesting choice to bring it on, knowing what's in it. I don't know.
I wanted to see your reaction, essentially, because I kind of figured you'd have the same expectations I did back in the day. Like, this game has been on our big list of Metroidvania games, and I've been kind of side-eyeing it a little bit. So more or less, I was trying to get like seeing a dark mirror version of myself. So yeah, I definitely remember being very annoyed Very disappointed, but anyway, stack rank. If any of y'all want to see where we left it for yourself, the link to our Google Doc is in the doobly-doo. For myself, I assume, Tom, do you know where you're putting this thing?
Do I ever?
That's the thing, but I do want to check because I don't want to be mean to you who's so clearly my better. You could destroy me with but a thought, so in order to placate you, I will, of course, buy you some time by going through my own reasoning. This game, I think I'm going to start with others in similar points on the list where I don't really consider them to be Metroidvanias, really. Like, they're very borderline, if at all. So we're thinking like Banjo-Tooie, Wonder Boy, Kirby, and the Amazing Mirror. I feel bad putting it below Spelunker, which I think definitely doesn't count. And I think I enjoyed it more than Knit Underground by a significant margin. And then we get to Yoku's Island Express, which, of course, we truly criminally undervalued. But I think Yoku's Island Express, as a Metroidvania fan, has more in its sheer novelty, if nothing else. And so Owlboy becomes my new number 36, under Yoku's, above Knit Underground. How about yourself?
I'm also looking fairly low.
Yeah, I could have predicted that one. So Brainbreaker?
Maybe not that low. I think I'm looking at new number 40.
Wow.
Seems about right.
You like Kirby more. That actually makes sense for you. You're a longtime Kirby stan.
I mean, I don't know. The game, it's okay, but even just from like the initial mechanics,
you specifically wanted it to be Kirby, that you pressed the A button to puff.
Yeah, it's just like it never really did the things I expected it to do.
Mm-hmm. Frustrated expectations. Meanwhile, Kirby, you could set your watch to Kirby.
I don't know, it spent 2 major segments of the game in stealth segments that I don't think I enjoyed. Right? I was like, okay, this isn't the worst. Right?
It was a game you played for the sake of... you had to. I made you do this.
Like, honestly, the first stealth segment, I was like, oh, yeah. Like, Ocarina of Time. There was a point where every adventure game had a stealth segment, right?
Sure.
You gotta get through the obligatory stealth segment. And then there was another one later on, and it was like, no, why? Why are you doing this to me?
My apologies.
Like, it feels kind of weird. Like, I don't know, it was a perfectly playable game. But
damn,
it did not excite me to go back to it, basically, ever.
Yeah, this was definitely a... You already made the commitment. I'm sorry. This one was definitely a miss for you then, but also, that was my plan, so get got, scrub.
Why would you do this?
I don't know. Like, I don't actually know if you would enjoy it or not. I enjoyed it for the story and the charming world and characters and all that to an extent, but, you know, again, for our purposes... fairly low, so now it's your turn, Hotshot.
I don't know. I guess I teed this one up, so I should do it.
Hell yeah.
So Ender Magnolia went full release, I think just a couple of days ago at time of recording.
Sure did.
Yeah, let's play that. We have Ender Lilies fresh in our mind, and we'll see how that goes.
If you did not put this one on, I was probably just going to play this anyway, so hell yeah, dog.
All right.
Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. So that'll be our game for next month. Well, if you disagree and you think like, oh, too much, too fast, you can always voice your displeasure in the YouTube comments or on Facebook. Email us at invertedcastlepodcast@gmail.com. We are still, of course, on X, the everything app.
Oh, boy.
At InvertedCastleP. Never forget the P. As well as various other social medias at Inverted Castle Podcast.
Maybe I should just close that X account.
You know, it would probably be healthiest for you if no one else. But until you do that and finally free us from our dark chains, I've been Eric Fox.
I've been Thomas Blight.
And remember, kids, pirates aren't your friends. They're your mateys.